All right, now some of you might say, Buck, they can't really go socialist, even if Warren or Sanders or Buttigieg or whomever, AOC, if she were old enough to run for president, which she would be not for quite some time, or even for Senate, I think, for a little while. Whoever it may be, in this current political environment, it would be either Warren or Sanders, but you have this understanding, we all have this understanding of how the system works. You'd say, but Buck, no. Look at the things that Obama wanted to do. There was really a three-legged stool of socialism. One leg was healthcare. They got that one without a single Republican vote, although they couldn't go all the way on it, but they set it up. It was a major incremental step to create further momentum into socialism. They did do that with Obamacare. That's why we're now already talking about Medicare for all. That's what we're talking about, these more all-in government socialist healthcare programs. They wanted to do environmentalism, green energy stuff, climate change hysteria, but they knew that that would come with a price tag that many of the Democrats at that point did not want to pay. Not just a price tag that consumers don't necessarily want to pay, and that politicians don't want to pay at the polls. So that was a problem. And then there was also immigration, right? There was immigration. There were these areas where the Obama presidency was trying to, and that was get an amnesty going. You get an amnesty, you turn the whole country then has the California effect. You have all these new illegals that are then either raising people who are likely to be Democrats growing up in Democrat households because of, we all know that people who are recent immigrants to the country are more likely to vote Democrat, and people who are illegals, obviously, or people that are related to illegals are more likely to want to support Democratic causes or to vote Democrat. So that was another part of it. And they almost got that through with Republican help. Okay, fine. Didn't happen, though, because Republican voters said, hold on a second. This is just amnesty. You can call it comprehensive immigration reform. It's just amnesty, though, and we all know that. All right. Now, all along, though, there's this trend. Right? The Democrat socialists want something, and they can't really get it because of the political realities of the Congress, the legislative branch, and people in Congress who want to keep their jobs, want to keep their positions, their seats. So that means that there's a slowdown. That means that there is some bulwark, which a word that has been ruined by the crappiest pseudo-conservative publication in the entirety of the internet. But there is supposed to be a break, a speed bump, if you will. There we go. Replace bulwark with speed bump. To prevent Democrats from just going all in on socialist plans. Well, here's the issue with that. What happens when Democrats decide that the president is just going to do it? You'll recall that Obama, through the EPA, through regulation, was pushing for socialist green policies, right? Redistribution of wealth from the energy sector to green energy projects and activist groups and all that. I mean, there were ways that they tried to use the executive branch to do exactly that. Obama took it even a step further. And when there was deferred action for childhood arrivals, DACA, right? The Dreamers. We're not going to prosecute them for illegal presence in the country, which is the law, is that they can't be in the country illegally. And then it was, we're also not going to prosecute their parents. And by the way, we're going to give them work permits and bring them into the system without any act of Congress whatsoever. And that was stopped, I believe, by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And they had to actually put out an injunction because the Department of Homeland Security under Obama wanted to just give out these ID cards to illegals under the DAPA program, Deferred Action for the Parents of Childhood Arrivals. And at that point, they would have been so close to legal status that everyone knows that they would have had to have been. The idea was to get them as enmeshed in the system as possible, so then they would have to be part of a larger deal. And all of a sudden, deferred action for childhood arrivals turns into 5 or 6 million people getting amnesty. And getting amnesty largely through executive fiat. Now, why am I all wrapped up in this now, because we've seen this play out in the past. We've seen how this is, the Congress is not going to save you from socialism, is what I really want you to take from this. Don't think that because Cocaine Mitch is putting judge after judge, great judges, Trump has gotten better judges in the Supreme Court all the way down to the circuit courts across the country than any president in my lifetime. So credit where it's due, and Mitch McConnell is just a lean, mean judge confirmation machine in the Senate. But what we're hearing now from candidates like Warren and Sanders is something you must keep in mind. When I talk to you about how they want to implement some socialist scheme, you probably would think, well, hold on, Buck, do they have the votes? Do they have what they had with Obamacare, a filibuster-proof 60-seat majority in the Senate, as well as a House majority? And can they get it? Excuse me. Can they get it through the procedures for the Congress, such as they are? Well, what if a socialist President Sanders, what if Comrade Sanders or Comrade Warren just comes along and says, no, we're just going to do this thing? This isn't really all that theoretical, because that's exactly what Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are promising to do on the issue of student loan debt. There is over $1 trillion of outstanding student loan debt out there. Elizabeth Warren's idea, as she's just said this now, is for people making less than $100,000 a year, up to $50,000 of student loan debt would just be wiped away. Okay. That's interesting. How would that happen? She'll just tell the education secretary to, quote, modify their loans. This is just by waving one's hand as president over all of these contracts, all these financial obligations that people willingly entered into. It would just all of a sudden be money that is no longer owed. You see also the Obama administration, by taking private sector lenders out of the student loan business, yes, there was an efficiency savings there, but it also meant that, guess what? You know who the lender is now for people that want to take out, $20, $30, $50, $100,000 of student loans? You know who the lender is? You. You are the lender. They say it's the federal government, but the federal government isn't the lender. You are the lender. It is your labor that funds the federal government. It is your labor that the federal government takes a piece of, under threat of force, by the way, and redistributes it for a whole slew of government programs, some of which we think are reasonable and necessary, most of which are not. It's your money. Government doesn't have money. The only reason the government's creation or printing of money has any value is because of the value that we, the American people, put into that by our labor. Otherwise, the government of any country could come along and just, and governments have done this. We've seen this experiment played out. Try to see how much you can buy with $1 trillion Zimbabwean. I forget what the currency is in Zimbabwe, but $1 trillion Zimbabwean, whatever it is over there. It's not going to get you very much. We have seen this experiment play out, and it has predictable results. Elizabeth Warren is effectively trying to socialize the debts that people have run up. Overwhelmingly, people who are middle to upper middle class to go to colleges that they paid. They could have gone to community college, which is effectively free for most people in most places. They wanted to go to a state school or maybe a private school. They took out loans. I also have to wonder if Democrats ever think about the implications of these things that feel good for them to say and that will get additional support for them. But if you are someone who just finished paying off your student loans after 20 or 30 years of sending in that check every month, and I'm sure it was painful and it was annoying. I sit here right now with producer Mark doing a radio show and not sitting in some cubicle working for some financial firm or something, largely because I didn't want to go to business school and incur a couple of $100,000 of debt. Just didn't want to do it. I also love doing media, but I didn't know if I'd be any good at it before I did it, but I figured, heck, YOLO, roll the dice. Didn't want to take out loans. But if I had thought that I could take out $200,000 in loans and have, well, that's a lot of loans, but that's what going to the business schools that I was, by the time you actually pay them off, that's what it is. If you're taking out the whole, it's about $60,000 in tuition, $20,000 living expenses. Then when you add interest over the life of the loan cycle, it's about $200,000. That's what you're paying off. But if I thought I could go and even get $50,000 of that just wiped away, that would be nice. That's a pretty sweet deal, isn't it? But then you have to ask, well, what about the people that have paid off their loans after 20 or 30 years? Don't they feel like there is something inherently unfair? Of course there is. Why do some people get the benefit of this timing and others don't? Just because Elizabeth Warren needs votes? And then think of some of the other downstream implications of this. Why would a college give out any financial aid anymore? Why would, university of whatever, university of left-wing absurdity, give people a 10, a 15, perhaps even a full ride scholarship to go to their school when they know that, just take out the loans and just let those loans ride a while, and eventually we'll have another Democrat will come into office and just wipe it all away. You don't have to really pay it down. Just pay the interest on the loans. Don't pay it on the principal, and you can just eventually it'll all be wiped away for you. There's been a huge transfer of wealth, by the way, from the American people to these bloated, ridiculous universities across the country. I mean, these places have billions and billions and billions of dollars in endowment at the very top end schools, and their tuitions are $60,000 a year now, pretty regularly. That's really where it is. And they'll even tell you that doesn't even cover the full cost of educating a student based upon the structure they have set up for these 4-year colleges. So you have to wonder, I mean, are the education so much better now than they were 30 or 40 years ago? Many of you probably have, or some of you listening went through this yourselves, but those of you who are around my age, you have parents who will tell stories about how they were, pulling weeds out of the ground from someone's yard and, doing a little bit of roofing or working as a dockhand or, I don't know, whatever, a store clerk, ice cream scooper. Producer Mark, what's the most job you've had? I mean, right now you work in media, you're fancy. What was the most job you've had?
This is actually hilarious. Ice cream scooper.
Really?
Yes.
I was unaware of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A Hershey ice cream shop.
Oh. Yeah. What was your favorite flavor of ice cream?
I mean, at a Hershey's ice cream shop, obviously chocolate.
Chocolate, right, okay.
Yeah. There's no better chocolate ice cream than Hershey's.
Just making sure you didn't say strawberry because it would be like crossing the streams and you'd have total protonic reversal and you'd have to imagine every cell in your body exploding at the speed of light. That's what happens if you say strawberry is your favorite.
I didn't realize that's what happens.
That's what happens. Science. #science. Is it true that it's actually really hard after a while to scoop the ice cream out, though? I've been told that it gets, it's more challenging than people think.
It is.
Oh, there you go.
It is. They don't just wet the scooper for no reason, by the way.
Right.
That helps it.
Yeah. See? Producer Mark had a job. It used to be that you could have had that job, and if you were going to, NYU, or if you were going to GW in D.C. or wherever, you might be able to, over the course of a summer, pay off maybe a semester, a half a semester. That's cool. If you're going to pay off a year at NYU or GW now, you better be making about $150,000. And like after taxes, you'll have some money to pay off that. It's ridiculous. Why is it so much more expensive now? Well, in part, it's so much more expensive because of people running around saying that everyone should get a 4-year college education. You have to get a 4-year college education. They don't understand that there's a supply and demand component of the workforce. It's not just everyone doesn't just get to be in the best, richest, best, highest paying jobs. We don't all get to be top, corporate lawyers or heart surgeons or, whatever. I wish I could have been a heart surgeon. But math. #no math for Buck. But instead, what you have are people saying, take out these loans and it will just be wiped away. Take out these loans, the taxpayer's on the hook for it. Moral hazard doesn't matter here. Learning your lesson doesn't matter here. And there's the bigger, broader lesson that I want you all to take from this too is what if a socialist Sanders or socialist Warren just says this, and the education department goes along as part of the executive branch? You could say it's going to be, maybe it'll be wrapped up in the courts or somebody will bring some kind of a challenge, but who knows if that'll even work? Depends on what judge you get and what the situation is at the time. But beyond that, it's just like with amnesty. Once you tell people their debts are canceled by the government, they're going to act like the debt is canceled, and they're going to have a strong case to make that that's the case. So now you have socialist rhetoric about, socialist rhetoric about the reality of just having a president who wipes stuff away. Absurd. But that is where we are. Elizabeth Warren is saying, if I am president, I will effectively give you up to $50,000 if you are predominantly a, upwardly mobile young person who took out loans and they don't want to pay them off. This is a payoff. She's just taking money from you, the taxpayer, and giving it to people that she thinks are going to vote for her. And if they'll do it with student loans, let me tell you something. Democrat socialists will do it with whatever they want. What happens if a President Warren comes in and says, I'm declaring an amnesty, and I'm telling the Department of Homeland Security to give people, okay, maybe it gets challenged in court, but what if they say, no, we don't care. We're going to go ahead with this anyway. What are you going to do? How are you going to stop them? It's the right thing to do, they'll say. That's what Obama used to say whenever he wanted his way. Got to go around Congress. Congress isn't acting, so I will act. That was what Obama got away with saying. The press was like, oh, yeah, that sounds right. That sounds constitutional. Don't underestimate the comrades. They're coming for all of us.
She said that she wanted to see the rules of the road so that she could appoint appropriate managers to present the case to the Senate. She did not say, well, I'm holding out until Mitch McConnell agrees to witnesses. So let's get back to what we really should be doing, focusing on, which is what kind of a trial are we going to have in the Senate? Is it going to be a fair trial or is it going to be a rigged trial? Allison, just as the president tried to rig his re-election by trying to get the Ukrainian president to go along with his political scheme, he's trying to, with the help of Mitch McConnell, rig the Senate trial by not calling appropriate witnesses and producing documents. The president has been stonewalling this impeachment process the whole way. And now he has an opportunity in the trial to present his case. And presenting his case means presenting facts and evidence, not saying this is a witch hunt. That is not evidence. That's just rhetorical, what I call rhetorical nothing burgers.
I think Mazie Hirono is the dumbest person in Congress. I really believe that. I actually don't even say it to be amusing. I actually think she's the dumbest person in Congress based on what she says publicly and the way that she conducts herself as an elected official. And so in a sense, she provides she plays a very necessary role because it makes, former members of the Senate like Joe Biden look not quite so dumb by comparison. Joe Biden, I think, is also a bit of a dumbass, even though he's been vice president of the United States. Remember, they can call Republican presidents, vice presidents stupid all they want, and then we're supposed to always accept that, right? George W. Bush was so dumb. George W. Bush is smarter than Al Gore, has always been smarter than Al Gore, and always will be smarter than Al Gore, okay? So as much as the media can try to, just brainwash everyone into thinking otherwise. Mazie Hirono here, though. We got to talk more. Then now we're getting to the impeachment stuff, the articles, the transmission of the articles, blah, blah. That's coming up.
The Senate was never going to pre-commit ourselves to redoing the prosecutor's homework for them. And we were never going to allow the Speaker of the House to dictate Senate proceedings to senators. House Democrats have already done enough damage to the precedent, to national unity.
Mitch McConnell's going to hold the line here, I think, which is good. He understands who he's up against here with these Democrats. He knows that they have no honor or integrity whatsoever in this process. And so all of their scheming and all of their insinuations, their smears, all this stuff that they're doing right now about Mitch McConnell is just desperation play. But perhaps there's nothing really more desperate and disgraceful in this whole situation than what has just come to light, and that is that they're now doing the Russia playbook against Mitch McConnell. This is from a CNN reporter. So not someone on the right who's trying to find some way to bash Nancy Pelosi, which really, to bash Nancy Pelosi, just let her speak publicly long enough, and she'll say something really stupid or really dishonest, and then watch all the Democrats scramble that, Pelosi's the great strategist. Pelosi's a narcissistic loon, but anyway. Here's what the CNN reporter shared this morning. Pelosi told her colleagues in private that Mitch McConnell is acting like a rogue Senate leader, as she said before. She mused that sometimes she wonders whether Mitch McConnell has Russian connections as per attendees at the meeting. Oh, yeah, that's right, folks. Because Mitch McConnell is not doing what Nancy Pelosi says he should do in the Senate. Remember, the Senate has the soul. This is the Senate's world. By the way, thank God that Republicans held the Senate in that last election, which was not something that could be counted on up front. I mean, you look at the Kavanaugh effect here, and it is I do believe that it's very likely that Kavanaugh and the Democrats' shameful effort to destroy that man, that Kavanaugh's that Kavanaugh's effect on the Senate that kept it in Republican hands was in fact the difference maker here. Could you imagine if you had a Senate majority? Now they wouldn't get to the 2/3 vote, even if you had a couple seats go the other way. But if you had Chuck Schumer running this thing and not Mitch McConnell, my God, this would be a circus beyond circuses. This would be like the craziest thing you've ever seen. I couldn't even think of something at the time, but something to get to the biggest circus ever. I'm not really sure. Also, I feel like circuses have become they're a little out of fashion now, especially you're not allowed to have animals at circuses anymore. People get very mad about like elephants being trained and lion tamers and all that stuff. That's pretty much all gone now. You can't really do that anymore. Oh, how times change. But fortunately, Mitch McConnell's in charge. And so he is not going to allow for the shenanigans from Democrats. But just remember this. While everyone was so aghast yesterday, oh my gosh, President Trump retweeted a photoshopped image of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in front of an Iranian flag with a turban and a headscarf, respectively. And people were saying, oh, this is so horrible, and how could he do this? And well, they call Trump a Russian traitor all the time. And the evidence for that is still zero. There's no actual evidence that Trump is a Russian. I mean, not only can they not prove that he's a Russian traitor, there's zero evidence for this. This is a without evidence claim. Oh, he says nice things about Putin. Obama said nice things about Cuba and the Castros all the time. Or things that were too nice about them. Oh, it's too friendly to them for sure. I guess he's a Cuban asset. I mean, this is absurd. But they say whatever they have to say to get what they want at the time they want it. And that's all that really matters to them. Tomorrow is supposed to be the day that they will transmit the articles of impeachment. There'll be a vote to transmit them, and then Pelosi has told the Democrats who do march in lockstep. I admire the Prussian precision of Democrats as a political party when they want something. There's none of this concern over principle. That somehow the Democrats they don't have Amash's and Rand Paul's and these other characters who have big problems with their own party on this stuff. The Democratic Party's like, yeah, we'll do whatever Pelosi says. So they'll vote to transmit these articles of impeachment. I still very much believe that the correct approach here for the Senate is to just shut this whole thing down. Just shut it down. Shut it down. Say, okay, great. Thank you for these articles. This is a sham. Let's vote. Oh, the president's innocent. See you later. I think that's it. All this stuff about, we need to have witnesses and we need to have whatever Mitch McConnell says we need to have. That's the reality of it. We saw what happened in the House. We saw the way Adam Schiff set all the rules. Where's the whistleblower, by the way? Notice how there's all this concern over witnesses who will testify at the impeachment. Whatever happened to the whistleblower? The single most important person in our republic at one point. Oh, he's going to bring down the president and tell us tales of corruption and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, we turn around and we say, hold on a second. We don't get to know who this guy, we can't have it confirmed by the press who the whistleblower really is. They have no interest in getting us the truth on that matter. And beyond that, we are not going to hear from the whistleblower. We're not going to hear from the whistleblower in this impeachment farce. Why? Why does he? Oh, he's not the only one who thinks that he has, or that he's not going to have to testify, and apparently not even Republicans are talking about this. I would also want to know, why does Adam Schiff think that he is not supposed to testify here? Why does Adam Schiff think he can avoid this? Play clip 12.
Look, I'm not a fact witness, so other than mollifying the president, I'm not sure why the Senate would call me or Nancy Pelosi as a witness.
But if it is a fair trial, though, you could very well see the case where the Bidens would have to be there.
Yes.
You think that is a good thing politically? You think that's a good thing for impeachment as a whole?
I think what the senators would have to evaluate is, do the Bidens have any relevant testimony?
Right.
And I think the answer is that they don't. What is at issue here is whether the president withheld military aid, withheld official acts like a White House meeting in order to coerce a country to announce investigations, not even conduct them, but just announce them to help smear his opponent. And there's not much light that Joe Biden or Hunter Biden can shed on the president's conduct.
So Adam Schiff is like, no, we don't need to hear from the Bidens because I say so. No, he doesn't get to make that determination. That's not how this is going to go. It is absolutely relevant that we hear from Hunter Biden in this. If we're going to call witnesses at all, which I want to be very clear, I do not think that is the proper. I don't think that that's the right way to go. I think that it makes much more sense under the circumstances to have the Republican majority just say, thanks, this is crap, this impeachment is ridiculous, and just throw it out like the pizza you pull out of the fridge that's been sitting there for a month that you thought was actually a week, and it smells and it has like green fuzz on it, you know? When the pizza goes fuzzy, then you know it's really time to not eat it. By the way, Producer Mark, did you see the latest craze right now? Wait, before I get to nuts here. Are you a pro or anti pineapple topping on pizza guy?
Absolutely against it.
Opposed.
Yeah.
So you're a purist.
Of course.
Yeah.
Why would you put pineapple on pizza? That's disgusting.
So I've actually never had pineapple on pizza, so I cannot speak to whether or not it's a good thing.
I haven't either.
It strikes me as a bit of culinary sacrilege.
Yeah.
But now there's a new trend: kiwi, the fruit.
Just get
not
out
the
of
bird,
here. I don't even want to hear about it.
On pizza.
Any fruit does not belong on pizza. Anything sweet.
Technically, Producer Mark, tomato is a fruit. Boom. Mind.
Yeah, but you don't
blown.
Usually put fresh tomato.
Yeah, I know.
Tomato.
It's technically vegetable is a cooking term, and it's a vegetable, but it's technically, scientifically speaking, it's a fruit.
I mean, sure, but that's the sauce. That's not. You're not putting tomatoes on a pizza. I mean, you could, but
yeah. Well, I mean,
those aren't sweet.
I mean, I don't know what kind of tomatoes you use, but I use my San Marzanos. They're delicious. Yeah. But yeah, no. So kiwi on pizza is no bueno for you. You don't do that? All right. Well, I'm just saying, if you pull the pizza out of the fridge, it smells bad, you throw it across the room and say, not for me, right? That's what the Senate should do with these articles of impeachment as transmitted by the Democrats. They should just say, this is ridiculous. We're done here. We're done here. Because you have these witnesses that come forward, and even if the Republicans get to decide who the witnesses will be in the Senate, there's always the possibility that something, that the Democrats can seize on something dishonestly if need be, but they'll seize on something to use against the Republicans in that whole proceeding. And why give them any more leeway? I think there's also a lesson to be learned here. If Democrats play hardball, bare-knuckle politics in the House, Republicans need to do the same in the Senate. If nothing else, haven't we learned as wartime conservatives, as I like to say, that we have to be willing to fight against our adversaries the way they fight against us? Or else we just consign ourselves to losing. Or else we just accept right up front that we can't win. We won't win because we're unwilling to do what is necessary. So I think shutting this down is absolutely the way to go. We shall see if I am correct. Oh, we got a little more from Shifty. Oh, no, forget that. We've heard enough of Shifty Schiff. Shifty Schumer, though, almost as shifty as Shifty Schiff. This is one of those things that you could practice saying to work on diction. You remember that stuff? She sells seashells by the seashore, Producer Mark says the radio host in real time on the show. I'm not having some kind of an episode over here. I'm just trying to take everybody back to, how you learn diction. All right, play Chuck Schumer, clip 9.
If he says everything's fine and he did nothing wrong, why is he so afraid of Bolton and the other 3 witnesses we've asked for testifying? If he did nothing wrong and he's not afraid, won't he let us get contemporaneous documents? If the president's so right, then all these witnesses and documents will corroborate his case. I think he's hiding something, and that's why he's so afraid of witnesses and documents.
Oh, isn't this so cute? This is like when Democrats conveniently, momentarily forget that, say, pleading the fifth is not an admission of guilt. They'll only say that if they don't like the person. Oh, an innocent person doesn't plead the fifth. If they like the person, they say, no, you have a right to avoid self-incrimination. You don't have to answer the questions of the government, whatever it may be. And this is another instance where the Democrat position becomes, because Trump will not go along with their attempts to destroy him, he's clearly guilty. Because Trump will not assist them in the annihilation of his own presidency, he must be guilty. This is what they say. That he fights back against this process is all you have to know. It's all you have to be told. Clearly, he must be a bad guy because he won't waive all executive privilege, give them all of his documents, have everybody, do what they say or else you're guilty. This is the way that Democrats think fairness should work in this process. Absolutely, absolutely absurd. But they've got nothing, folks. They've got nothing. They've made a mistake. They got their base, they got their voters all fired up, thinking maybe they were going to be able to finally take down Trump with this scam, with the sham of impeachment. Turns out it's not going to happen. By the way, Rand Paul here is saying that he might force a vote on Hunter Biden testimony if the GOP. This is interesting. Why would he do this? GOP back impeachment witnesses. Yeah, so if the GOP says there's going to be witnesses, that Rand Paul is going to force calling witnesses, including Hunter Biden. My colleagues can't have it both ways, calling for some while blocking others. If we're going to give a platform to witnesses the Democrats demand, I look forward to forcing votes to call Hunter Biden and many more. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a no leeway, no halfway situation. You shouldn't call a witness. You should shut it down. Shut it down. Listen to the Buckster on this one. Buckster, the grand strategist from inside the Freedom Hut. I'm telling you, Mitch McConnell, I'm telling you, Republicans, just slap it down. It's like, hey, are you going to try to, producer Mark, in the big game and you're in the end zone, do you try for the pick or do you try to just whap it down? Just whap that ball down because you don't want the guy to get a touchdown.
I'm not even sure you know what you just said.
It's when you're not going to get it. If you're
you're on defense.
You're
here?
on defense.
Uh-huh.
And the ball's coming into the receiver.
Sure.
Do you want to try to be fancy and catch that interception, or you want to just whap it down?
You're going to whap it down.
You whap it down.
Sure.
Exactly.
It just took a while to get there.
Well, I'm trying to, I'm expanding my verbal palette to include some sports analogies. We have producer Mark here. And I did watch football recently. Exactly. And karate chops, buck slaps. Mitch McConnell, listen to me, my man. Don't call witnesses. Don't go through all this. Just, as the great John Madden would say, just whap it down.
My son Adam is literally my policy advisor. I'm not joking. If you ever met him, my team, everybody will tell you, it's like, oh, it's Adam speaking. He's a person, he's like, I'm so tired, Mom, of people saying capitalism and socialism. Why not peopleism? He one time, I was in a meeting with Chairwoman Maxine Waters and two other colleagues about pushing this amendment to stop fossil fuel investment. Us, the government, stop investing in fossil fuels. And he whispers to me, Mom, can I have a piece of paper? And of course, he doesn't know how to whisper. And I give him this piece of paper. He sometimes likes to sketch. So I'm thinking he's drawing over there. Before that meeting ended, he handed me the piece of paper. I had posted it. And he said, Mom, you got to tell him. He says, we only have until 2030. Like, he was giving me these talking points. And at the end of the meeting, I put it up and I share it to Chairwoman Waters and my colleagues. And she just smiled. And I thought to myself, God, if we could just clear the room and sometimes put kids in the room.
Democrats really believe this. That's Rashida Tlaib. They really think that children have more wisdom about policy than adults, apparently. This is the Greta Thunberg situation. This is why so many blue check journos create these false these false anecdotes about their own children. Daddy, I just want to know, why is it that Medicare for all is being opposed by those who, because of cronyism and obsession with capitalist free markets, refuse to put people first, said my 5-year-old. Your 5-year-old didn't say that. And oh, by the way, libs, I don't care what your 5 or your 10 or your 15-year-old thinks about any policy matter whatsoever. And the fact that the libs do care is, in fact, a data point about how little we should care what they think about anything, because they have very poor judgment and they are emotionally unstable.